Hi, I'm JJ. That's my abstract. I don't know why it's up there, but cool. Yes, hi. So this is everything you need to know about Kubernetes in 19 slides, because that's the title slide. And yes, I have that actual email address at IBM. I work at IBM as a developer advocate. Now, there we go. First, let's talk about the building blocks of Kubernetes. First of all, it's called kubectl. If they say it's called, thank you, if it's called kubectl, they're wrong. It's kubectl because you want to hug your Kubernetes clusters. You want to cuddle with them. And you will alias K. First thing first, Kubernetes is a container orchestrator. So in the world of Kubernetes, containers are the most important part to think about, as you see here. And next. 15 seconds. There we go. The actual amount that Kubernetes understands is something called a pod. You can have n number of number of containers inside of a pod. 9 to 10 times you see just like pod E here, where it's 1 pod per container. But you can have like pod D with 3, if you have like a logging thing inside of it or whatever. A deployment is a way to actually make sure that Kubernetes is always running n number of pods. For instance, up in there, that top one, pod A, has 2 pods running on 2 different Kubernetes nodes. Excuse me. You're going to roll back in 2. Nodes are actually just an API endpoint for compute. As you can see here, a node just sits on top of it, but in your aspect, it's just an API to run compute. I'll say that a few times. But most importantly, nodes don't matter. You can actually have n number of nodes. You should probably have at least 1, but you could in theory do it with 0. And you just basically run Kubernetes on it and it expands more and more. It's just an orchestrator to run it. Now, if one of your pods blows up, for instance, pod B or pod A2, as you can see, it pops up again somewhere else. Because all Kubernetes is an orchestrator, it sees that the pod is gone, it will spin it up somewhere else. Let's talk about some internal concepts of Kubernetes to make sure that you understand how everything kind of comes together. Next is this one. This one. One more time. There we go. The most important thing that we all know as system administrators is DNS, right? We all hate it and love it. Well, it turns out inside of Kubernetes, they have something called kubedns that allows you to tell how services are made. For instance, this foo web, this is an actual service definition, which is just YAML. You will be writing a lot of YAML. Namespaces. It's important to know how to build up different namespaces inside of Kubernetes where you can slice and dice your actual infrastructure. You can run dev, QA, and prod all inside of one Kubernetes cluster, so you desire. Node ports. Don't use these. They are basically a way to map one specific service to a specific container and a pod. Don't use these. You will see them though. Load balancers. Load balancers are how you see how you see most services out there because it's a way to have n number of pods behind it. The whole point of microservices is to be able to horizontally scale and vertically scale. Load balancers allow you to do that with this inside of Kubernetes. Ingress. I actually have this on 2 slides because it's the hardest concept. If you can understand how an ingress rule works, then you basically understand the hardest concept of vanilla Kubernetes. If you notice on the far left-hand side, that's a bunch of YAML that kind of puts a bunch of things together. Now, in this case, let's say pod D had a database inside of it. Don't run your databases in Kubernetes. In this case, you would basically be able to say that, hey, this is how everything maps together. You would hit foo web, and then your data platform would be sitting on foo data. Don't run your databases in Kubernetes. Let's talk about the ecosystem. Now, I do practice this, I really do. One more time. Let's talk about Helm Charts. Helm Charts are basically just a way to do package management inside of Kubernetes, because you know what we all need? Another fucking package manager. Istio. Basically, Istio is a way to do a lot of the stuff that vanilla Kubernetes can't do. It allows you to do intelligent routing, basically some telemetry and things like that. It's extremely powerful. And if you have an opportunity as you start moving into the Kubernetes ecosystem, Istio is worth your time to look at. Knative. It should be called Kserverless. I don't know who called it Knative. It's a way to run Kubernetes, serverless work on top of Kubernetes. This next slide, if you want to take a picture of it, is all the information you need to know. Oh, I didn't time that right. Damn it. Yes, please. I work at IBM for the IKS. I can give you free Kubernetes clusters if you want. Please reach out to me, awesome@ibm.com, and I would love to talk about this more. And I have an open space about Kubernetes first steps that I would love to have. Thank you.